You find a fragrance you love, look at the price, put it back. We've all done it. $400 for Creed, $300 for something by Kilian, $375 for a bottle from Parfums de Marly. And you're standing there thinking, there is absolutely no way the liquid inside costs that much. You're right, it doesn't. And there's an entire category of fragrances built around that exact fact. Clone fragrances, made to smell like the expensive stuff, priced like they aren't. Most people still think they're cheap knockoffs, usually because they've never smelled a good one. This video fixes that. Quick explanation because it matters. A clone fragrance is made to smell like a well-known expensive one. Not the same bottle, not fake packaging, not some counterfeit pretending to be the original. Just the scent profile. Replicated, stripped of the marketing budget, the designer bottle, and the celebrity campaign from someone who almost definitely doesn't wear it. The best ones get to 85, 90, sometimes 95% similarity, and some people genuinely prefer them. One thing though, don't confuse clones with fake bottles that copy the original packaging exactly. Those are a different thing entirely, illegal in most places, last about 30 minutes on a good day, and smell like someone described the original over the phone. Not what we're talking about. We're talking about houses like 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘀𝘭𝘢 and 𝘴𝘶𝘨𝘀, Arab perfume brands that have been making fragrances for decades and put the money into the actual scent instead of a campaign. And that's when things changed. There was a time when buying a clone fragrance was something you didn't mention. You'd just wear it. If someone asked what you had on, you'd mumble something vague and change the subject. That time is basically over. The fragrance community, people who own 50, 100, 200 bottles, have started openly preferring clones for daily wear. Not because they can't afford the originals, because some clones outperform them. More projection, longer longevity, better value per spray when you're not saving the bottle for special occasions. In the Middle East, fragrance is culture. Everybody wears it, every day in serious quantities. So when 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘀𝘭𝘢 makes a clone, they're not cutting corners on the liquid. They're just usually spending less on the luxury marketing machine around it. The celebrity campaign, the inflated prestige pricing, the idea that expensive automatically means better. You're wearing the scent, not the pricing strategy. And if someone ever asks what you're wearing, you can just say, it's something I found. Nobody needs a brand name. The compliment already happened. Right, let me just show you what I mean. Here are 5 clone fragrances that made full retail pricing start looking a little questionable. 5 picks, the most talked about clones right now. Starting off with 𝘴𝘶 Club de Nuit Intense Man, the famous Creed Aventus clone. Under $30 versus $500 plus for Aventus. That price gap alone is already slightly ridiculous. Smoky Pineapple Birch Musk. Now, important, the opening can be rough. Not terrible, but definitely sharper and more synthetic in the first few minutes than Aventus. So don't panic and immediately judge it. Give it time. Because once it settles, this is where things get interesting. Creed Aventus became legendary for a reason. Smoky, fruity, confident, and absurdly versatile. But Club de Nuit Intense Man is the clone that made people seriously question whether that extra few $100s always makes sense. After the opening, you get surprisingly close territory. Smoky pineapple, strong projection, excellent longevity, and a dry down that consistently earns compliments. Is Aventus smoother? Yes. Is CDNIM slightly harsher up top? Also yes. But honestly, those first few minutes are basically just a small tax you pay for saving hundreds. Pick 2. 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘀𝘭𝘢𝘪. The fragrance constantly compared to by Kilian 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘢𝘀, around $50 versus $415 for 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘀𝘧. Cinnamon, vanilla, cognac, amber. Warm, sweet, slightly boozy. Winter evenings specifically. 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘀𝘧 smells like an expensive dessert. It's $415 and worth every penny if you've got it. 𝘧𝘀𝘀𝘢𝘀 is $50. And according to most people who've worn both, it's sweeter, denser, and actually lasts longer. The cognac note is slightly dialed up. 𝘧𝘧𝘢𝘀𝘀𝘀 is more refined. 𝘧𝘀𝘀𝘀 is more addictive. This is one of the best-selling clone fragrances for a reason. Now, French Avenue Liquid Brune. Under $40 versus around $400 for Parfum de Marly Alter. Cinnamon, vanilla, cardamom, citrus, warm woods, one of the best reviewed clones in existence. Liquid Broom is under $40, and the comparison is almost embarrassing for the original. A content creator did a blind smell test between the two, couldn't tell them apart after 2 minutes. That's not an ad, that's just what happened. Currently the #2 best-selling clone on the market. Next is Lattafa Assad, around $45 versus $265 for Dior Sauvage Elixir. Spicy, woody, amber, musk, year-round, works in almost any setting. Sauvage Elixir is Dior's take on the original Sauvage DNA, pushing it darker, richer, and far more intense. But Assad at $45 is regularly described as 85 to 90% of the experience. Incredibly versatile, office, date night, casual. One of the most recommended safe blind buys in the entire clone category. If you know Sauvage Elixir well, you'll notice the small gaps. If you're new to it, Assad will feel like a revelation. Lastly, Afnan Supremacy Collector's Edition. Roughly $40 to $50 versus $610 for Creed Aventus Absolute. Pineapple, bergamot, amber, woods, fruity, refined, surprisingly polished for the price. Aventus Absolute is Creed's darker, woodier, more sophisticated take on Aventus. Supremacy Collector's Edition gets remarkably close. Reviewers consistently describe it as smelling like something Creed would charge 4 times more for. Under $50. Performance is 8 to 10 hours easy. Someone described it as, if Creed released this and called it Aventus X, people would pay hundreds for it without blinking. That felt accurate enough to repeat. Now, 2 quick things before you go and order everything on this list. Rule 1, if the packaging looks identical to the original, don't buy it. That's usually a fake, not a clone. Same bottle, same logo, questionable liquid. The real clone houses have their own branding, inspired by the scent, not pretending to literally be it. Rule 2, if you've never smelled the original, the clone will probably feel incredible. Club de Nuit Intense Man without knowing Aventus? Amazing. If you know Aventus well, you'll notice the small gap. That's not a flaw, it's just context. Know what you're buying, that's all. Clones aren't a compromise. For most people, in most situations, they're just the smarter choice. You're not Elon Musk, I'm not Elon Musk. The idea of spending hundreds of dollars on a fragrance that might last you 8 months if you're careful is a bit much, especially when a $30 to $50 alternative is getting dangerously close. And if this video just saved you several $100s, subscribe. It genuinely helps me make more of this.